You're perhaps following the Sam Sulek, the Trend Twins, the list goes on, and how could you not want to do it? Obviously, it's being glorified. Obviously, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. When I was 20 years of age, there was no pressure the way there was today. There was no social media, there was no posting before and after photos, there's none of this. Coach Greg, in today's video, steroids are awesome. Remember, it's his title, not mine. Jeff Nippard released a video, and so I'm here before the title change. All right, the title convinced me. I'm starting my cycle tomorrow. Old title. Steroids are awesome. The most sad part about it is that he put so much time and effort into making this video, and it will 100% be demonetized due to the word steroids and the title, while still providing super valuable insights and really trying to make people understand why it is so important to not do something dangerous that we don't even fully understand yet.
They work. That's probably irresponsible for me to say, but if we're going to talk about the steroid epidemic, we need to do it honestly.
And so I've got hundreds of videos talking about the dangers of using steroids, and in 2024 it's become an epidemic. More people than ever before are glorifying the use of steroids. People say, no, Coach Greg, you glorify it and all this stuff. I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. The difference being, when you only talk about the good and none of the bad, you're making younger, impressionable audiences want to use and abuse steroids. And why? Well, why do you think? Look at Sam Sulek. Look at the Trend Twins. Look at the muscles on all these influencers with millions of followers. Young people see that and they want to be like that, exactly like that. And so they'll do anything to achieve their dreams, even at the expense of endangering their lives.
I'm a lifetime natural bodybuilder, and these are my testosterone levels right now. 485 nanograms per deciliter.
Jeff Nippard is only at 487 nanograms per deciliter. When you look on the internet, people think, oh my God, that's so low, you can't build muscle. Yet, look at Jeff Nippard's physique. Very, very impressive. Just because your testosterone levels aren't at 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, doesn't mean you need testosterone, doesn't mean you need HRT, SARMs, SERMs, also doesn't mean you need enclomiphene. You just need to go to the gym and train.
More and more fitness influencers are opening up about their anabolic use. In theory, this honesty is a good thing, but this kind of backfired.
And so there's a big difference between somebody like Noel Diesel, who admits to saying he's on steroids, and somebody who's glorifying its use by saying, look at me, I'm on trend. And so the picture says Trend Tech. Young LA. Does that not promote and glorify steroids? Literally, Trend Technology. The Trend Twins, and it has Young LA on the cover. Young LA worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe it's worth $1 billion. I don't know. But yet they're promoting the use of trend in young and impressionable teenagers and young men, perhaps in their early 20s.
The bigger problem is a lot of fitness influencers are only ever partially transparent. They say they're on steroids and they show their gains, but they rarely, if ever, show any of the bad stuff.
And so just as Jeff Nippard is saying, people are bragging about their use of steroids and showing all the gains that they're making, but they're not showing the negatives. And so if you see all of the good and none of the bad, you're going to think, well, why am I not taking trend? Why am I not doing testosterone? Why am I not on HRT, taking SARM steroids and so on? And so what I keep telling people is that when you're open and honest, transparent about using steroids, you have to show the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not against people being open and honest and transparent about their use of performance-enhancing drugs, but if you glorify it, if you play cool sounding music and you brag about the needles you're taking, you show your before and after photo, and you say, look at me, I'm amazing, and you don't say any of the negatives, then you're not being fair, and the result is going to be more people than ever before are going to be using drugs.
Now its job is to make that muscle cell bigger. And if that's all that steroids did, that'd be sweet, and I'd be on them. But there's a lot more that happens.
And so unfortunately, steroids don't just make your muscles get bigger. It makes everything get bigger. And for example, your heart. Your heart is going to get bigger and stronger, which sounds good, but it's causing left ventricular hypertrophy. This is not good. An enlarged heart is not a good thing. It sounds good. Hey, a stronger heart, more powerful heart. How could that be bad? But it can lead to getting heart attacks at a younger age.
Not many people realize that steroids affect your brain.
And as soon as he said that, thought of a video I recorded a couple hours ago about Mike Israetel, Dr. Mike Israetel, speaking about how it makes him angry, how he was feeling anxiety, and how it was very dangerous, especially in higher doses.
To explain this, I wanted to find someone with scientific education and firsthand experience with steroids.
And lo and behold, who comes up? Dr. Mike Israetel. Guy, he's been famous, he's transparent, open, honest, telling you about the steroids he's on and so on.
And actually currently, right now, I have severe anxiety disorder.
And so right now, Dr. Mike Israetel has severe anxiety disorder. I can tell you that when I was on tren, in particular in higher doses, felt along with anxiety. I couldn't wait for the cycle to be over. Steroids, for the most part, in lower doses, it made me feel amazing. I felt good. I had a greater sense of well-being. But in higher doses, especially tren, halotestin, and others, it makes you feel bad. You don't feel good in your own skin. Although you perhaps look amazing, you don't feel amazing.
That's actually right now. As I talk, that's what I have.
And so think of it, as he's speaking right now, as he's talking, he says he has it. And so imagine when Dr. Mike Israetel perhaps gets angry or upset, he's reading comments, he was saying, I'm literally fantasizing about beating these people up. I'm not making this shit up. He literally said these things. And so is that the kind of thing you want to expose yourself to when you're taking steroids? Because that is literally what can happen. And you might be thinking, oh, but it's only about the gains. Do the tren twins look happy to you? Overall, in general, as you watch your videos, remember, they could be actors. Overall, do you get the sense of calmness, of tranquility, of peace, inner peace? I get the feeling that they're always yelling and screaming and why are there only 2 crumbles left? Why are you making that face? Why are you doing that? Is it possible that's from taking steroids, or at the very least, is the steroids making it worse?
The scans revealed that the lifters who took steroids had a significantly bigger brain age gap. That means when they looked at the natural brains, their brain age matched their actual age.
And so apparently, and I did not know this, I'm learning this right now as we speak, when you take steroids, it can age your brain. Age your brain. And so on the inside, when I think about myself, I feel like I'm 29. I'm 48 years old, but I feel 29. I feel healthy. I'm racing bicycles and so on, but perhaps my brain is older than the last time. And have you all seen how hard it is for me to remember names? To pronounce names, to remember sentences like this? Have you seen how hard I study Spanish? Perhaps harder than last time. If it wasn't for my work ethic, perhaps I wouldn't remember anything. I get lost driving into the city. I don't know where I'm going. Perhaps this is a side effect from me using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs.
And steroids will make you look bigger, but they might not help you feel any better about the way you look.
Absolutely. People think that steroids are going to make you get that dream physique and that you're going to be happy no matter what. All it does for the most part is it makes it worse. Once you start on that cycle and you start being hyper-focused on your appearance, you don't compare yourself to who you used to compare yourself to. You compare yourself to the best of the best. Perhaps you're 150 pounds, 6 feet tall, and you have no muscle. You don't feel good about yourself. You start taking steroids. You put on 20, 30 pounds of muscle. Now you're 170, 180. Now you're posting your photos. Check me out. Do you know what people are now doing? You're on steroids and they're comparing yourself to Larry Wheels, to Eric Janicki, to perhaps even Coach Greg. And so you're thinking, well, there's perhaps someone out there still better. Well, let's take that person. Chris Bumstead. Do you really think that he's happy with his physique? You don't think he looks at himself in the mirror and thinks, can I get a bigger bicep? Arnold Schwarzenegger himself had body dysmorphia. He looked in the mirror, he didn't like the reflection he saw. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Just because you take gear doesn't mean you're going to look like sebum. And then when you eventually come off, you'll quickly lose a good chunk of the size that you put on and feel smaller than ever.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle. This video is amazing. When you're on steroids, you feel great. Perhaps not if you take too many. When you're on steroids, you might feel great. You're getting more muscle on, you're getting bigger, you feel great in the gym. But eventually you come off that steroid cycle and you lose the muscle, and then what? You look at yourself and you're like, I just lost 10 pounds of muscle. I feel like shit. I lost my pumps. You hate it. You go back on the cycle. It's a vicious cycle. Very hard to get off.
Some testosterone is also converted into estrogen, which can increase breast tissue formation in men, leading to soft, puffy nipples, also known as gyno.
And so some of the negative side effects, you notice that some men are prematurely going bald in their 20s. Obviously, if you have genetics to go bald, it's going to speed this up. For example, Chris Bumstead, as you know, just got a hair transplant. Another negative side effect is the estrogen conversion. You're going to get gynecomastia gynecomastia. This is when you get those female breast development. You see the puffy nipples and so on. People getting surgeries for that. That is called gynecomastia. That's another negative side effect.
Injecting testosterone also lets your testicles know that there's more than enough testosterone to go around, so they shrink to about 1/2 of their usual size.
And Jeff Nippert also points out that your testicles are going to decrease in size. Many people think it's like raisins. He says it's about half the size. I do believe to be about accurate based on my own self-assessment. They're about half the size of what they were when I was in my teens and in my 20s.
The shrinkage quickly shuts down your body's natural ability to make its own testosterone, which is why some people need to inject testosterone for the rest of their life.
And so the reason for that is because if you're getting testosterone exogenously from outside the body, your body doesn't need to make them. And so your balls, they go on vacation. Why am I going to make testosterone when you're already giving it to me for free? I don't have to work. There's no point. And so the problem is if you go off steroids, your balls, they enjoy staying on vacation. They've gotten the taste of the good life. They're laying back and they're like, I don't want to work again. And so unless you're lucky, you have a PCT of some sort and you can wake your testicles back up. Oftentimes it can take several months or years to get back to normal. And so many people will be on HRT for the rest of your life. I'm one of those guys. I abused steroids for 10 years. I'm not lying about this. I've been on HRT for 5 years, and I certainly can't imagine going 100% off.
Steroids also make sebaceous glands on your skin grow bigger, which causes them to overproduce a sticky, oily substance.
And one of the worst side effects, not really for your health, but one of the worst side effects that people don't like to get is a lot of acne, bacne, and so on. This is when your body is speaking out in Braille, saying, stop doing this.
And I have been personally hospitalized at least once for a non-infected but insanely immune responsive abscess.
And so absolutely, something that people don't think of is if you've injected steroids long enough, you're going to get some form of an infection. You're injecting steroids under your skin. Every time you do an injection, you're poking a hole into your skin. It's allowing bacteria, germs, and so on to go through the skin. The skin is a barrier. It protects you against foreign particles out in the world. And when you poke yourself, you're essentially stabbing yourself and you're allowing these particles to get in. Eventually, if you've done it long enough, you're going to get an infection. You might have to get it drained by a doctor. You might see some ridiculous amount of swelling, and it's going to be very painful. And trust me, I've had this happen a number of times. No matter how careful you are, how cautious you are, if you've done it long enough, you are going to experience this.
The thoughts you get on steroids are disturbing.
And so Mike Isertel explains that the roid rage that you get, perhaps you're not getting aggressive, but the thoughts that you're getting. Now, remember, it doesn't affect everyone to this extent, but for some people, perhaps you're more genetically predisposed to this, you're going to have thoughts that you didn't wish that you had. And up next, the next expert on steroids, let's go from Dr. Mike Isertel to Derek from More Plates, More Dates.
A pretty common reported anecdote is feeling like you just hit puberty again.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's probably not a good thing.
And so one of the side effects of taking steroids, it feels like you're going through puberty again. The first 6 to 8 weeks, you feel like you're going through puberty. He's saying, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I'm going to tell you that for me, it was a good thing. I felt incredible. Every time I went to the gym, sat in a PR. So much more energy and strength. Wow, what's happening to my body? Hornier than last time. Want to have sex multiple times a day. Just telling you the truth. Problem is, it goes away. It doesn't last forever. And so as much as you were hornier than last time while doing that first cycle, when you stop that first cycle, it does the exact opposite. And getting harder than last time, that becomes a chore. You're lucky if it's even going to work. One thing you can, in fact, use is, of course, harder than last time. But the smarter person, they're not going to use it in the first place. If you don't use steroids, you don't have to come off steroids. Does that not make sense? Code Greg, 15% off.
Increased probability of injury. This is sometimes talked about when your strength is skyrocketing. Your connective tissue cannot maintain the pace of your muscular strength.
Absolutely a great point. Derek's talking about when you're on steroids, your muscle gets stronger than your joints. You're lifting much, much heavier weight. You're getting much, much stronger, and your muscles are getting stronger than your joints, ligaments, tendons, and so on. And so you're much more likely to get injured.
You know, if your bench goes up 50 pounds in 6 weeks, typically you're not going to hold back. You're going to keep pushing because this weight feels like a feather now. You're gonna, go as far as it can take you.
I remember my bench press going up 90 pounds in 9 weeks, 10 pounds per week for 9 weeks straight. It was incredible. But remember, when all things go up, they all then come down. And so when I went off cycle for perhaps it was 12 weeks or so, every single day that I went to the gym, I got weaker. Do you know how motivating it is to go to the gym when every week, no matter how hard you try, no matter how perfect your diet is, you get weaker every single time? It's great when you're on shore, stronger no matter what. But when you come off, that is going to be a very, very hard time.
Would you say there is a healthy way to use steroids?
And so Jeff asked, is there a healthy way to do steroids? The answer is no. It's not healthy. Unless it's prescribed by your doctor, seeing as it's medically necessary, it's not healthy. Any dose above and beyond what the doctor prescribed, to me, is an abusive dose. And so if you're saying, I'm only going to use 150 milligrams a week, if the doctor prescribed you 140, those 10 extra milligrams, they're not necessary. That is an abusive dose. Is it healthier than doing 500? Of course it is, but doesn't mean that it's healthy.
Check your blood work, do various heart scans and procedure. Consult with a professional coach who does this for a living.
Some of these things, it does make sense, but it really depends on who you hire. And so, for example, one thing that stands out to me is he says, consult with a professional coach. This could be the opposite of what you want to do. Many professional coaches out there, what they do is they're going to try to convince you to use higher doses. And why? Because when they show that before and after transformation, when they can show your client having put on 10 or 15 pounds of muscle in 10 weeks, or they put on 30 pounds of muscle in a year, and they show them getting last place in bikini to first place in bikini, or last place in bodybuilding, first place in bodybuilding, under my coaching, more people are going to hire that coach. And so the coach's job is to make you look the best that you can. Oftentimes they do so at the expense of your health. They don't care about the fact that if you're female, you just had your voice changed, that your private member is getting bigger, and that's for females, not males. They don't care about that. What they care about is that you won your competition and you have the best before and after transformation that they can post on their social media account to get more clients who again will repeat the cycle of overprescribing and convincing people to do higher doses than last time.
Until about your mid-20s, I would say there's a high probability that steroids will stunt your brain development to a significant extent.
And so is there a minimum age that you should be at least getting to before you start using steroids? Remember, never ever break the law and only use steroids with the advice and consent from your own doctor. And Mike Israetel says essentially at least past your mid-20s. Obviously, everyone knew you shouldn't be doing it in your 20s. Some people are not even done growing. But one thing you need to consider is your brain done developing? If your brain hasn't finished developing and you prevent it from doing so, imagine the damages you could be doing. Not to mention, when you're 20 years of age, you're not able to properly make educated decisions on the safety of what you're doing. You might say, yeah, I want to do it, but you're not ready for it. I know you think you're ready. You're 20 years old and you think you're going to be the next Chris Bumstead. Your girlfriend says, hey, if you only had 10 more pounds of muscle, I'd love you that much more. You don't know enough to say, you're an idiot, I'm moving on to the next girl. You're not smart enough. It's not your fault. I don't blame you. And based on the pressures of social media, you're perhaps following the Sam Sulik, the Trend Twins, the list goes on. And how could you not want to do it? Obviously, it's being glorified. Obviously, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. When I was 20 years of age, there was no pressure the way there was today. There was no social media. There was no posting before and after photos. There's none of this. I only compared myself to the people in the gym. And so when I was 150 and 160 pounds, I felt like an animal. I felt like I had more muscle than last time. I was bigger and stronger than everyone else. And so I didn't feel the need to use steroids. But in today's day and age, no matter how big you are, you could be 200 pounds of muscle. You scroll the internet, in 5 minutes, you found someone bigger and better than you.
And so I would say my cutoff age generally, as the conversation for responsible medically supervised steroid use for serious goals by a serious individual, begins at age 25.
And so Mike's advice, 25 is the bare minimum. Jeff's advice, at least 10 years so that you kind of get to your natural genetic limit. He says by default, you're probably going to be 25 plus. I started serious training. I'm talking about very serious when I was 10. When I was 13 years old, weighing 127 pounds, I was benching over 230. I was very serious. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I didn't use steroids. Did my first competition in high school. I did 42 competitions while being 100% 100% natural. And you know the difference between me and most bodybuilders? I didn't use steroids until I'd been training for 20 plus years. The difference being, look at the longevity it allowed me to have in the sport. I didn't get my IFBB Pro card until I was the age of 35. For the most part, most IFBB pros, they're training pros in their 20s. By the time they're 35, they're retired. Why? Because they've already done all that they can do. And so they've compressed all their gains into less time. What I did is I stretched my gains from age 10 to perhaps 30 plus, did it 100% natural, and put on as much muscle as I possibly could. Learned how to eat properly, learned how to train properly, did everything 100% natural. Then when I added steroids, it added longevity to my career. Think of it. I was able to compete as a professional well into my 40s. If I had started doing steroids, perhaps as young as Chris Bumstead at 18, perhaps I'd be retired by the time I was 28. Who knows? How many more years do you think Chris Bumstead has left? Does anyone think that Chris Bumstead is going to continue to be competing in his 40s? He's going for his 6th Mr. Olympia right now. Does anyone see him going for his 16th Olympia title? I turned pro at 35. Do you think that Chris Bumstead will even be competing at 35? I don't think so. What is my advice? Wait as long as humanly possible. How long should you wait? Longer than last time.
The answer I usually give is get at least 10 years of natural training under your belt.
And so if you ask me, what is my advice? I'd say as long as you're making gains natural, keep doing it natural. So long as you're making progress, training in the gym is going to be fun. What happens is you eventually hit your natural genetic limit. You hit a peak, a plateau, you can't get over that, and then training becomes a lot more boring. Think of it. If you've been training in the gym for 6 months straight and you're not any stronger, not any bigger, you haven't added on any muscle, it's not as fun as when you're making improvements. And so at that point, I would say, hey, if you need to do it, do what you got to do. Remember, ask your doctor, don't break the law. And so why do you think so many people are bulking and cutting? They're bored of being stagnant. When you're main gaining, you're only gaining muscle perhaps 3, 4, 5 pounds a year. It takes perhaps 3 months just to gain 1 pound of muscle. You're not always making gains. And so what people do is they bulk and they cut so that they see changes in their physique. They gain a bunch of weight. It's mostly fat, but they think it's muscle. And so they feel good about that. And then they go on a cut and they feel like they're getting lean. Hey, I'm losing all that fat again, and now I'm seeing some definition. And so it gets some more excitement. They're bulking and cutting. And so that to me is why most people prefer to bulk and cut over main gaining, even though in my opinion, main gaining a lot healthier and results in the same amount of gains.
I'll be honest, there have been several moments in my own bodybuilding career when enhancing has been very tempting. I keep thinking, maybe I've reached my natural limit for muscle growth. But have I actually? Am I actually at my natty limit? Or have I just not been training as hard and smart as I could be?
And so Jeff says, look, is it true what Greg's been saying? Literally, he's not saying my name, but how many years have been saying this? Jeff does not train hard enough. He doesn't train to failure and beyond. At least he wasn't in the past. We used to be a running gag between the both of us. I used to poke fun at him. In one video, he addressed this. And so I said, you haven't been making progress, but I think that you have more potential for more growth if you were to train harder than last time. Remember, Jeff was an award-winning bodybuilder and powerlifter. He has elite level genetics. Although many of you are making fun of him, teasing him, perhaps because he's shorter than even Coach Greg, or that he doesn't have a really massive physique, the guy has a lot of muscle. Considering he's 100% natural, which hardly anyone at his level of development is, he is very impressive.
I wasn't going to reveal this, but this year I'm doing an experiment with McMaster University here in Canada to see how much muscle it's possible for me to build naturally this deep into my lifting journey.
And so Jeff has decided in this year he's going to do an experiment to see how much muscle can he put on right now. Despite the fact he's been training for perhaps 15 plus years, can he in fact make some progress? Or has he in fact reached his genetic limit? I believe he still has more muscle in the tank. He could in fact build more muscle while being natural. Now, it would be my absolute dream if Jeff would be willing to try Turk Builder. I am certain that if he were to use Turk Builder, he would not believe the results he would get. I know he would be open and honest and transparent, and Jeff would make a video talking about, did it actually work? I dare you, Jeff, please try Turk Builder from HCLT Supplements, not from some other company that perhaps doesn't have turkesterone in it. And remember, just because it doesn't have turkesterone doesn't mean it doesn't work. Ecdy steroids do in fact work. Turk Builder is this much stronger. Jeff, I dare you. It says to take 1 to 2 capsules a day. If you take 3, I don't think you'll be able to handle it. And to Mike Israetel, I also dare you to take this. Take this at some point when you're off, when you're perhaps only on HRT, or maybe when you retire. Tell me, does it give you the same anxiety as when you're on tren? I'm telling you, when you take this, I caution you, if you do in fact take this early in the morning. The feelings I get when taking Turk Builder, very similar to when I was taking steroids. It's not going to build as much muscle, but it certainly gives you that same feeling. I'm not lying. I'm not making this shit up. I'm not a liar. I'm telling you the truth. Give Turk Builder a try. It may in fact impact your sleep. It's going to allow you to train harder than last time. We're going to get you more muscle and strength in the gym. And so if you've hit your natural genetic limit, you've been training for 10 to 15 years, you're 25 years of age and older, and you want to keep going natural without using steroids, without subjecting yourself to all of those dangers, consider using Turk Builder. You won't regret it. Code Greg, 15% off.
For this entire year, I've been doing everything 100% perfectly in the gym. I'm tracking every single set, taking the last set of every exercise to true technical failure. I'm not skipping any sets or any workouts.
And so he's now going to be training to failure. He's counting every set, every rep. He's training like an animal, like he should have been in the past. I believe Jeff Nippard is going to make more gains than last time. I don't think he's at his natural genetic limit. I believe that if he trains harder than last time, of which he's going to do, that he can improve his physique. And remember, it's already very impressive. I would love to see Jeff Nippard in a bodybuilding competition.
What happens to a lot of guys is that they think they're at their natty limit and only steroids will help, when in reality, they're probably just not being as diligent with their training and their nutrition as they could be.
Exactly. Many people think they've hit their limit when they actually haven't. If only they would train harder, eat better, take natural supplements, they could in fact make more gains than last time. But instead of that, they resort to using steroids. Sometimes they're only 20 years old. Oh, I've been training, I can't make gains, I need steroids. Really? You're 20, 22 years of age, you think you already need steroids, that you don't have any gains left to make? You're a kid. Guys like Andrew Eubanks saying that they need to take testosterone to make the gains, they don't. All you need to do is focus on the gym, train harder. When you're in your early 20s, trust me, there are plenty of gains left in the tank. And so when you see a guy like Jeff Seed who has more muscle when he was a teenager than he does at 29, think to yourself, do you really think that's a lifetime natural? Or do you think that perhaps he was taking something in his teenage years and that now he's natural since then? If you take steroids as a teenager, you're probably going to be smaller than you were at 19 than you will be for the rest of your life as a natural after that. And so an exquisite video from Jeff Nippard yet again. Guys, girls, please don't abuse steroids. Wait longer than last time. Do it 100% natural, at least for the first 10 years. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, like the video if you liked it, watch one of those two bloops. Don't forget, we've got the cookbook, the Circle Diet book, also the Seco protein bars. They taste amazing. Creatine, GO2 Max Ecti Builder, G-Test, 3-Test, pre-workout pumps. We got everything. Head over to my website, code Greg, 15% off. And until next time, I am out.